The 2015 summer season is upon us, and tragically that means we're going to get those inevitable stories about children drowning in their own backyards and down the Jersey Shore. The good news is that all of those drownings are preventable if you know what to do. Dr. Ellen Miele is a pediatrician with Spring Lake Pediatrics. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
That is true. They are all preventable.
They are. They are. Children age 1 to 4 are in the highest risk for accidental drownings, and those children need to be always kept an arm's length from an adult who's supervising them. That's probably the single biggest thing that parents can do to prevent some of those accidental drownings.
And anytime there is water, it doesn't really matter where it is.
No.
You're going to fountain a child that age can drown.
Absolutely. A fountain in a park, a blow-up pool in someone's backyard that, you know, this deep, it's enough for a small child to drown.
I don't think parents realize how fast it can happen, because they feel that they can leave and get a phone call real quickly. They feel like they can have a conversation. They feel like they can leave the scene for a moment, not knowing that in those few seconds the child
Absolutely.
Because they're so small.
Seconds. In seconds, a child can be submerged and take that breath in and inhale that water into their lungs, and yes, it can happen in a matter of seconds.
Now on TV, we always see drowning as somebody splashing and yelling, and you think you'd be able to know. Now, I've told you before the show that I had a niece that died from drowning, and that was in a crowded pool on Memorial Day weekend in the middle of everyone, because you can't always tell.
Correct. That's correct. Kids will take that big gasping breath and they'll pull that water into their lungs, and that water will start a process that is referred to typically as a dry drowning, where they're not submerged, they're not under the water, their head may be above, but when they first went under and they took that water in, it can start a process that'll impair their oxygenation and subsequently lead to all the same effects that you'd see for a drowning that's totally submerged.
And they can't talk.
And they can't talk, and they can't talk. At that point, it's like a choking victim who, you know, when someone's choking, they aren't able to say any words. They're not coughing, they're not making sound, and some of these little kids are not verbal enough even to, in any way, really signal someone that they're in trouble.
I want to stay with this because it's such an important point, because I think we are all guardians when there's children in the water. We should all be looking out, even if it's someone else's child. And so someone may not look right, even though they're not splashing because they're keeping themselves above the water, and they're not talking because their lungs are filled with water. But you need to say, are you okay?
Exactly, exactly. And even just to extend a hand, kind of pull them closer to you. If you're in a pool where there are children, a family party, you can never be too careful.
This is especially a problem in the African American community, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Unfortunately, the ability to either, participate in swim lessons, or whether it's the ability of a family to afford swim lessons for their children, or just access within the community for swim lessons, a lot of kids do not get swim lessons at the appropriate age in some of our African American communities.
I just read some statistics from the Centers for Disease Control. They say from the ages 5 to 14, you have a 5.5 times greater risk of dying if you're an African American in a swimming pool.
Correct.
It's a cultural thing, I guess.
It's a cultural thing, and again, it's access, and it's that something that just it's not done, in the communities. Maybe some of those communities don't have as many pools that the kids are in and experiencing, water games and play in water, and the ability to be part of swim teams and things like that. So there are some places now where they're starting to identify that, and areas that have started some, community pools with lessons geared towards that population. Some very close to us, right here in Monmouth County, in Neptune.
But if you're going to have a public swimming pool, you should have public swim lessons
Absolutely.
too. I think that's
absolutely.
And what are some of the other things? We don't have a lot of time, but we have parents out there that are concerned, and they should be, and I hope they're scared, and I hope they watch their children all the time. Aside from just being there all the time, what about life preservers, floaties?
Absolutely. You can't trust anything that you've blown up yourself. So if it's an inflatable device, that should never be trusted to keep a child safe in the water. Again, kids who are young toddlers and small children always no more than 1 arm's length away from the adult who's supervising them. And swim lessons are a good idea. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends swim lessons for all children ages 5 and over, and even kids in that 1 to 4 age group can participate in some early swim lessons if they're developmentally ready and they're going to be around a lot of water. It's a good idea for them to have them as well. But never should a parent assume that that would somehow make them drowning proof, that this couldn't happen. They still need that constant supervision and the protection of something like a life jacket, an actual approved life vest to prevent, the child from submerging should they fall into a body of water.
And we didn't even get a chance to talk about teenagers and swimming after the lifeguards leave and alcohol, but Doctor, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was great, important information. Dr. Ellen Miele from Spring Lake Pediatrics. When Another Thing continues. Dawn takes us to a one-of-a-kind interactive exhibit that combines entertainment, science, and innovation and is being shown exclusively in our area before it ships back to Paris. That's next.